I bet you I have something you want. And my desire is for you to have it too. Let's turn back the clock a bit. I had just turned 40, and to the outside world, I had it all. A great husband that I've been with for 28 years, 2 awesome kids, a beautiful home, and a successful business. But here's my dirty little secret. I was bored, frustrated, and I just craved more intimacy in the bedroom. As I thought about the next 30 years with the same man, having the same routine sex, I wasn't fulfilled, and I knew there had to be more. Around the same time, cannabis was being legalized in Canada. It was socially acceptable, safe, and natural. And after trying cannabis-infused chocolates for the first time, I discovered it was an aphrodisiac. Suddenly, I experienced the most mind-blowing orgasms that I've ever had in my life. Cannabis was my catalyst in transforming what I thought was a midlife crisis into a midlife awakening. And I'll fill you in on this later. So at 40 years old, I decided to take responsibility and own my sexual pleasure. And I made a decision that will not only change my life, but my husband's life, my friends' lives, and now I hope your lives too. And this is what I'm sharing with you today, the path to a blissful sexual awakening. And it begins with these 3 steps. Discovering what you want, asking for what you want, and then getting what you want. First, let's start with discovering what you want. Often, we don't know what we want. We just know that something is missing. Do you remember what high school sex education was like? If it was anything like mine, you probably would have ended up with the same amount of sexual shame that I had in my early years. The message was clear. No sex is safe sex. Ultimately, we were taught that sex is bad, and it certainly was not about the women's pleasure. In my experience, women were taught to be sexy, but not sexual, sexually available, but not demanding, to pleasure our partners and fake our own orgasms for the preservation of their ego. Through religious and cultural programming, women were taught to suppress our desires and focus on pleasing men. Well, I had needs too, and I decided to do something about it. So at 40 years old, I began experimenting with cannabis as a tool not only to enhance all the sensations in my body, but also to heighten intimacy. Cannabis played a critical role in helping me discover what I wanted. Now, there's a ton of cannabis-based research out there, both in and out of the bedroom. In 2019, a study done by the International Society of Sexual Medicine says that 69% of people reported that sex while using cannabis was more pleasurable. The women reported an increase in sex drive and heightened orgasms. And after 5 years of experimentation, I'm the poster child for orgasmic satisfaction. Before inviting cannabis into our bedroom, my mind was so busy thinking of all my to-dos. I'm sure you can relate. Kids, chores, work, when I really should have been present with my husband. Cannabis drew me out of my head and into my body. Earth-shattering orgasms pushed me to seek more pleasure. Most people are motivated to change because of pain. but I was motivated by pleasure. If you are getting the kind of orgasms I was getting, trust me, you'll want some too. We all have our own unique wants and desires, and there's no reason to be embarrassed or ashamed. Yet, in order to get what we want, we have to ask for it. To help me remove my shame, I needed to normalize conversations around sex. And wow, I found out I'm not that special. Everyone I talked to wanted what I wanted, and that was to have passionate, intimate, erotic relationships with their partners. These conversations helped me discover what I wanted and desired. All you have to do is begin by visualizing it happening, then you have to ask for it. Which takes us to step 2, asking for what you want. And for this, I'm going to get naked with you today. Emotionally naked, that is. And what that means is surrendering to vulnerability and allowing myself to reveal my innermost desires. Being vulnerable is the ultimate form of creating trust and intimacy. Researchers have discovered that the key effect of THC, the key psychoactive component in cannabis, is amplifying awareness of feelings, senses, and emotions. Cannabis helped me get out of my head and into my heart. Habitual thoughts and worries subsided, and I became attuned to the present moment, thinking less and feeling more. After unknowingly keeping my sexual fantasies hidden for over 25 years, I was finally able to say what I mean and mean what I say. For years, I've built up so much anxiety because of all of the shame I was programmed to believe about my sexuality. When I finally found the courage to ask my husband how to please me in some novel ways, it was like this huge relief to find out that he really wanted to pleasure me. At first, it may be scary to have these intimate conversations, but just know there is so much joy on the other side of fear. Ask yourself, have you ever fantasized about a passionate kiss, slower foreplay, or something new? But have you actually ever asked for it? Ladies, your men want nothing more than to pleasure you. But the poor guys just need to know how, and he needs to hear it from you. Prior to my sexual awakening, I expected my husband to be a mind reader. You know what I'm talking about. There were times where I would lay in bed, fantasizing about him caressing me and knowing exactly all the perfect places, kissing me from my neck all the way down to my toes. Then my fantasy turned into reality, and he didn't have a single clue. Yet, I expected him to know exactly how I wanted to be touched and kissed. And when he didn't know, I would burn inside with resentment. How can we expect our partners to know what we want if we don't tell them what we want? Many of us have at least 3 to 4 significant relationships in our lifetime. And some of us, including myself, recreate those relationships with the same person. I'm now on my 4th marriage to the same man. That's right, my 4th marriage to the same man without a divorce. I say that because our marriage has evolved in 4 distinct phases. Our first marriage was vanilla, and it was fine because our focus was on our kids. We discovered in our second marriage that sex could be much better. And our third marriage introduced trust and vulnerability. And our fourth and current marriage brought deep intimacy that has resulted in soul-shaking orgasms. We reignited our desires by asking for what we wanted. And I so want that for you. Once you have discovered what you want and asked for it, it's time to go get it. To truly get what you want, you have to understand the more committed you are in your relationship, the safer you'll feel, and the more you experiment, which will increase the chances of you actually getting what you want. According to global statistics on divorce.com, 50% of couples end up in divorce. This includes many friends I know who are in that situation and planning their escape. They're looking elsewhere for the right person, when in fact, the right person could be with them all along. I was fortunate that my husband was willing to come and play. What is missing is in the awareness of what truly passionate sex could be. My friends use the F word to describe their sex lives. They tell me they're just fine. Well, there's two types of fines in my friends' sex lives. One is maintenance sex. You know, this boring status quo kind of sex. And then there's the oblivious kind, where they don't even remember the last time they had sex. The reality is, they're not fine. But they're just too complacent to do anything about it. Many of my friends have settled into relationships where sex is no longer important. They say they're fine, but couldn't it be better? The most important part about my sexual adventuring was transcending fine and adopting a growth mindset. Through this journey, I realized in order to get what I wanted in my marriage, I had to be fully uninhibited and let go of my ego defenses. Cannabis helped me find my husband's jokes funny again. Because I'm able to listen with fresh ears, he's more attractive to me now because I can see him with fresh eyes. I have so much gratitude for the man he has become. Exciting, caring, and so willing to experiment. The truth is, over time, many women like myself do find their relationships has gotten boring. But now I can see the transformation in the way he looks at me with desire. Prior to cannabis, my husband and I were both wearing a mask that kept us from being seen for who we are and saying what we want. Ever since we started using cannabis in a safe and intentional way, I'm more comfortable being intimate and revealing my deep desires. Even my husband was able to shed his stoic armor and transformed into a warm and approachable man, comfortable in his vulnerability, and more importantly, able to talk about his feelings. Many people ask me, are you still able to have these intimate conversations without cannabis? And the answer is now, yes, most definitely. You see, vulnerability is a muscle. As we work out and flex the part of our minds that opens up and reveals our feelings, we get better at it, even when we're sober. Owning your sexual pleasure is an ongoing responsibility, a journey that requires a growth mindset, a mindset that never settles for mediocre sex and intimacy. It's true, the work is not easy, but it's so worth it. In this talk, I've shown you that by discovering what you want, asking for what you want, and then getting what you want, you can own your sexual pleasure. With the help of cannabis, it does become exponentially easier, and that helped me transform my marriage. So come on, it's your turn to ignite your sexuality. This is my desire for you. It's time to take your mediocre maintenance sex to mind-blowing vacation sex at home.